Hi, and welcome everybody to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast, right here on the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel, brought to you by gamblersworld.com. And like every Monday, I am joined by Mr. Doug Upstone of DocSports.com, and it is a Monday, the 15th of May, and the weather's getting nice here in the Northeast. I know it's got to be heating up in Arizona. And Mr. Upstone, how was your weekend?
Everything was good, Ross. Like I said, enjoyed some time with my wife and children and stuff like that. So that was all good. And then the kind of mixed results overall with the sports handicapping. Some good, some bad, but hey, that's part of the deal. From that standpoint. But no, but it was good. And let's see here, what else? If there was anything. Well, there is one thing that stood out. Okay, I will bring. This is that I thought was great. Jason Day, for people don't know, professional golfer. I believe 7 years ago was the number one player in the world. Had a variety of injuries, particularly to his back, forced him to have to sit out a lot. Also forced him to have to change his swing. Basically disappeared off the map. Okay, and so last year, all the things he had been going through, he had a number of things happen. Okay, started to get it back together. Has been playing well this year. He won yesterday on the PGA Tour. Okay, so congratulations to him. And in his press conference, the other thing he did, which I thought was a very nice touch, his mother had contracted cancer in 2017. She had battled it until last year when she passed away. And so he thought it was nicely fitting for him to win his first tournament on Mother's Day. So I thought that
Absolutely.
was a really nice story.
It is. It's a feel-good story, and it's a sign of perseverance from somebody who was down and out for a while and came back and climbed to the top again. So yeah, the PGA is coming out my way, Doug. Oak
Right.
Hill here in Rochester starting on Thursday. A lot of hoopla in this area here, as you well know, and they have the Phoenix Open. So looking forward to it. I mean, it's good for the city. It's good for the economy. And too often we get a bad name here in Western New York because of the weather and such. But the weather's been nice, and the golf course, I can assure you, is beautiful, folks. So
Yes.
if you're a PGA Tour or a PGA Tour fan, better, whatever the case may be, looking forward to you watching or maybe even coming to visit. Who knows? I don't know why you want to come to Rochester, New York, but in any event, I
For
live
the
here.
golf.
I live here. It's been good to me. Hey, my Rochester Amherst, the Buffalo Sabres farm team, were one game away from reaching the conference finals for the first time since 2004 in the AHL playoffs. So a lot of good things, and I will be going to the game on Wednesday night.
Nice.
Potential clincher over at the Blue Cross Arena here in Rochester. Enough of that. We are talking baseball today, and Doug's going to be taking a look at the Seattle and Boston game on Tuesday. These games are going to be played on Tuesday, the 16th. Again, folks, we are taping 24 hours advance, so please keep that in mind. These lines are subject to change depending on when you view the video. And I'm going to be looking at the Philadelphia Phillies and the San Francisco Giants. That's a late game, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But Doug, the NBA playoffs, conference finals are set. Boston and Miami, the Lakers and Denver. I like a Boston-Denver final. I like the Boston Celtics to win it all. No, excuse me. I like a Boston and the Lakers final. I do
Oh,
not
okay.
like Denver in that series. Now, here's why I hate predicting series picks, because you don't know what's going to happen as the series progresses. And then if you make a series pick, it marries you to that pick, so when you're talking about individual games. So I'm going to say that's my prediction to get there. But folks, if the complexion of the series changes in either one of those series, I should say, I am going to reserve the right to treat it as a single entity as it goes along. So even though is that fair? Even though I make those series picks, that's why I like to get to the finals. Boston, I like to win it all. I said whoever won the Boston Phillies series, I was going to take them to win it all. I like Boston. And I also said if Denver advances to the finals, whoever advanced out of the Western Conference, between the series between Denver and Phoenix, I was going to go the opposite way and take the Lakers and Golden State winner. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. But a number 7 and a number 8 seed in the conference finals in the same year, Doc.
Well, I mean, the Lakers are a completely different team than what they were most of the season. So that has a lot to do, obviously, with that. And that actually what happened the one year, 90, I think I want to say 96. It was the year after Houston won it. Okay. And they were a 5 seed the following year. But that year they had suffered a lot of injuries. Hakeem Olajuwon was out for a good portion of the season. I believe somebody else was hurt as well. And so from that standpoint, that changed the whole dynamic of that team when everybody got healthy at the end. Very similar to what's going on with the Lakers, who also made some other adjustments. I don't have an opinion yet, Ross, on Lakers and Denver. I understand why people like the Lakers. I don't know, though. I think this Denver team is better than what people think. The other thing is that speaking of making bets, last I saw, Boston was a minus 525 to win their series. That's a huge
It's
number.
a monster number. And
Yes.
And again, when I make these series picks, I'll never encourage you to lay that kind of number.
Right.
That was
Yes.
just pure opinion on my part. Anyway, go ahead, Doug.
No, and I think I saw this right, or maybe I'm forgetting the number exactly, but I believe in the when that number has come up in a series where anything above 400, the team that is the favorite in that case is 31-2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So pretty strong situation. Okay, from that
Yeah.
standpoint. Now I'll ask you something here, Ross.
Sure.
Okay. See if you're of this opinion. I think no matter who wins, okay, somebody's going to win. They're going to get the credit. They're going to get the due credit. But the one thing that, and I don't know if this is going to be a trend or not, but to me, it's a theoretically interesting question. It's not going to be a great team. It's going to be the best team this year. But I don't think we're going to go back and whoever wins it, okay, they're going to go back and say, you know what, this was a really good team. Okay. Yeah. I don't think there's anything there. I think this will be one of those years to where, like I said, somebody will win, but we're not going to think of this team. It's going to be quickly forgotten, other than for the city that wins it, in terms of how good these teams actually are. Good teams, above average teams for sure, but great, not for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, all season long, there's really not been somebody who really stood out above and beyond the pack. Right. I mean, for a while, it looked like Milwaukee, and obviously they fell flat on their face in the first round, losing in 5 games to Miami, the number 8 seed. So, yeah, I agree with you, Doug. I mean, whoever wins this series, probably not going to be talked about as one of the greatest teams in NBA playoff history, NBA history. Certainly not going to approach the level of a Golden State when they were winning quite frequently. Who else? The Lakers teams of the past, the Celtics teams of the
San
past.
Antonio.
Yeah, yep. San Antonio, Houston, who you just mentioned, winning back-to-back titles with Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler. So no, I agree, Doug. I think whoever wins this is going to be the best team this year. And there's going to be no denying that. It's not like somebody who was at the top lost a key player or two, and that prevented them from winning it all, because that wasn't the case either. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it's just more of a theoretical point. In the NHL, Edmonton, I think they got what they deserved. Yeah. Okay, yesterday. In looking at that series, Edmonton was favored, and I was a little skeptical, but I can see why they were favored. But looking back at the 6 games, is that if Edmonton's power play wasn't working, they ended up scoring. They scored 19 goals for the series, Ross. Of the 19 goals, 9 of them were on the power play.
Yeah.
So when it was 5-on-5, they were decidedly outplayed by Vegas. So Vegas is the number 1 seed, and obviously it's well worth it. And I think we're headed to a Vegas versus Carolina final.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I like, I would have liked Carolina a lot more a month ago. They're missing 3 of their top 6 forwards, and they're still, look, I mean, They win in 5 games. They win in 6 games in the first 2 series. So it's not like they're not playing good hockey. But I would, if they had a full complement of players, if everybody was healthy and ready to go, unequivocally, I would love Carolina. I said that from the get-go before the playoffs started, that I actually like Carolina a little more than Boston when we discussed the topic. I would have never predicted Boston losing in the first round in 5 games. I'm not going to go out on a limb like that, but I like Rob Brindamore as a head coach. I think that his team reflects his personality. If you ever watched Rob Brindamore play, the last time Carolina did win the Stanley Cup was back in and the only time they won it, I believe, was in 2006, and Rob Brindamore was their captain. And ironically enough, they beat the Edmonton Oilers that we just discussed in 7 games, and they beat my beloved Buffalo Sabres in the conference finals in 7 games that year. So, yeah, I mean, some real interesting stuff when it comes to these playoffs. Again, whoever wins the NHL, the Stanley Cup, I don't think that team is going to go down in lore as one of the greatest NHL teams either. Now, if Boston would have won it, that would have been another story, right?
Right. Absolutely.
But, that's a moot conversation at this point.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Now, just switch gears. You're talking baseball. Now, here's what I wonder is that, I know we're going through inflationary times, okay, right now, and we've heard a lot of discussion and all this, but the outcome of this weekend, for San Diego spending $250 million to improve their team, I'm just thinking the inflation dollar just isn't going as far, Ross, as what it used to. Okay, from that standpoint, because they've lost 5 out of 6 to the Dodgers. I believe, what is it? I think they've lost 6, or they've won 6 out of 25 at Dodger Stadium. They scored 4 runs this weekend, Ross. Yeah. 4. And they got Manny Machado. They got Tatis. They got who else? They got Bogarts and Juan Soto.
Yeah.
And they scored 4 runs.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is pathetic.
I remember when the final piece of the puzzle, when they got Soto, the talk was they're going to be the second coming of Murderers Row. Well, they very well may be at some point, but it isn't right now. There's no 2 ways about it.
Well, that might be Murderers Row. They're just on the receiving end as opposed to giving it out.
Yeah. So. And Murderers Row might be the front office that shelled out all that money too, so.
Yes.
In any event. All right, let's get to our 2 games, Doug.
Yep. All right.
And again, folks, just a friendly reminder, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel, take a second to do so. It costs you absolutely nothing. You get not only privy to me and Doug, but also like tomorrow, I'll have Sean Higgs and Jesse Shula on, and we'll be talking the NBA playoffs. As a matter of fact, I'll have those 2 mugs on the rest of the week with me talking NBA. And then Doug will be back on Thursday to discuss his favorite sport, which is Major League Baseball. And Doug has captured a couple Major League Baseball crowns when it comes to handicapping. Doug, you want to fill the folks in a little bit about how you've been doing of late, and then go right into your pick?
Sure. Well, speaking of baseball, Ross, I've won 3 of the last 4 days, so definitely like the direction. And even the losses, Ross, have been things that just kind of circumstantial. So I'm real positive, okay, right now about what's going on in baseball, and I like the direction of how my picks are going. And just, how we've talked about it. I literally talked about it with somebody the other day about the mental aspect of handicapping. And so sometimes you just, you know when you're off, and sometimes you know when you're on, or if you're at least heading in the right direction. And I definitely feel that's the case here with Major League Baseball. So I'm excited about, the upcoming week, and then, hopefully then the weeks and ahead. So that's been good. Over the weekend, hit a 6 and 7 unit best bet in NHL. So that was really strong. I said I missed I didn't say, but I missed with Edmonton yesterday. Just a bad call on them. Just looked at the wrong side on that. And NBA, one basket away. Had the over yesterday. Okay, with right there, just Philadelphia scoring 10 points in the third quarter was a killer, but still even come up one basket short. But hey, that's still part of it. Still hitting 62% of all recent NBA plays. So happy with that. So just continuing to go along here, Ross, and just get some momentum going. And also hit a couple of nice props over the weekend too in the Major League.
Nice. Very nice, Doug. Yeah, my NBA again, just rolling along, folks. My NBA side since the postseason began, money line / point spread picks, combination thereof, 28-11. The NBA postseason overall 31-18, which is good for 63%. So a lot of good things happening. This week I gave out 4 NBA 10-star top plays, hit every one of them. So that makes me 6-1 in the postseason. So a lot of good things happen. 2-1 Saturday on Major League Baseball. So things shaping up pretty good for me at rbwins.com as well. And again, you can find Doug at docsports.com. Doug, go right ahead here. Seattle with Luis Castillo slated to be the starting pitcher for the Mariners at Fenway Park in Boston to take on Nick Pivetta, who is slated to be the starting pitcher for the Boston Red Sox, 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, folks, this game goes on Tuesday, the 16th of May. Right now, Seattle's a minus 145 money line favorite, and the total is 9. What direction you going here, Doug?
Well, this is going to be game 2 of the series, and from this standpoint, we have a really interesting dichotomy of the two teams. Red Sox, one of the best offenses in baseball, currently as we're doing this, third in runs scored at 5.5 points or 5.5 runs per game. They're facing a Seattle team that is run of the mill in terms of runs scored, middle of the road, 15th, averaging 4.4. But here's the crazy part about them doing that, Ross. If you look at some different metrics, they're last in batting average in baseball. 225 is what they're hitting.
Wow.
Slugging percentage, 26th. On base percentage, 26th. So you can say, 4.4 runs per game is pretty bad. Well, it's pretty darn good when you're doing that poorly in all other facets of your offense. But then when we talk about pitching, then we do a 180.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
On this one here with these teams. Red Sox, 26th in runs allowed, 5.2 runs per game allowed. Mariners, 4th, 3.8 runs per game. Boston starters is the problem. And Nick Pivetta is part of that problem, by the way. They're 28th in run prevention. They're a respectable 17th in bullpen, but the bullpen numbers are slipping. Why? Because the starters aren't going deep enough in games. More relievers are being used, getting exposed. The Mariners, 7th in run prevention in Major League Baseball and number 1 in bullpen. Okay. Even though yesterday they had quite a day on Sunday, a 3-3 game. Detroit never hit the ball. Oh, the furthest ball they hit was 120 feet. Seattle had 3 walks and a hit batter to lose 5-3. Okay. In that game. So that was crazy. Now, Luis Castillo, he hasn't been as sharp of late. Okay, now he's having a real good year. His ERA is 2.70. Teams are batting just 213 against him, but he's 4.76 in his last 3 starts. Pivetta, well, if you're a Phillies fan, this looks very familiar to you. This is the Nick Pivetta that you're used to seeing if you're a Phillies fan. The 6.23 ERA permitting 350 on base percentage and a slugging percentage over 500 on this one. Now, Ross, we talk about, you mentioned every time we do these videos, these 24 hours in advance. Well, we had a change in this one. Okay. Even just before when I'm doing the write-up on this game, there was a change. Boston came in as a plus 125 underdog, and the total was 9.5. And quite honestly, all things considered, I was ready to take Boston, okay, with the information I had at hand. But then the total dropped to 9. Just about maybe a little over an hour ago. And so with that leads me to believe that the odds makers think that Castillo can certainly do a better job, okay, in limiting Boston's offense and maybe hold them in check. So I'm looking at this. So I changed my mind on this one, Ross. And then part of that also with this information came up. American League road favorites of minus 125 to minus 175 with a slugging percentage of 410 or lower, with a good bullpen ERA, good bullpen whip of 1.35. starting a pitcher who's walked one or less batters in his last two outings. They are a sensational 53-13. So, Ross, I'm going to backtrack. I'm going to take the Mariners minus the 145 for today's free play on
It
the
is,
winner
yeah.
circle.
And Boston coming off being swept at home against St. Louis, which was sort of surprising. All of a sudden, the Cardinals, after starting off so badly, have I think they've won 6 of their last 7 or 5
Yep.
of their last 6, something in that order. But yeah, I mean, Seattle's bullpen is really, really good. You hit the nail right on the head there. I mean, you made it quite clear about how Seattle has really lacked when it comes to offensive production this year. But with all those bad numbers that Doug recited in terms of Seattle offensively, they're still 20-20 on the year, which means they have to be getting great pitching. And Doug highlighted that as well. And I think Seattle's a much better than a 20-20 record team. And I'm not so sure that Boston is a team that's going to contend. I mean, I know they got off to a great start. They've had a rough patch over the last year or two. But I'm not sold on Red Sox. I have to see more consistent pitching from top to bottom. And their overall pitching is you can't continue at the major league level to win games 9-8, 10-6 on a consistent basis. You don't play at Coors Field. Yes, you do play at Fenway, but they're even winning games like that on the road sometime too, Doug. And unless they shore up their pitching staff or somebody starts to catch fire, I'm really not sold on Boston. So yes, Seattle minus 145 over to Boston Red Sox for Mr. Doug Upstone of DocSports.com. All right, let me look at my games. The Philadelphia Phillies at the San Francisco Giants. It'll be Zach Wheeler for the Philadelphia Phillies and Alex Cobb for the San Francisco Giants. I should say those are the slated starting pitchers. Right now, as we speak, 24 hours in advance, the San Francisco Giants are a minus 110 money line favorite, virtually a pick'em game, and the total 7.5, and it's courtesy of DraftKings. Alex Cobb has pitched very well this year, Doug. 8 starts, a 1.70 ERA, averaging 6 innings pitched per start, and he's even been better than that in his last 5. All 5 of his last 5 starts have gone under the total, and his 1.08 ERA during those 5 starts was a major reason why for those low-scoring affairs. And better yet, he's given him innings. I mean, he averaged 6.7 innings pitched per start over his last 5. Why is that important? Because the San Francisco Giants bullpen sucks. So anytime you could limit the liability there, you have to account for that. Now, Zach Wheeler, last 3 starts, 2-0-1 to the under, and averaging over 6 innings pitched per start, 19-2 strikeout to walk ratio, 2.45 ERA, 0.82 whip. Real good numbers. Again, the Philadelphia bullpen scares the living hell out of me. I know they've been really, really good over the last 7 games, but we've seen this before with Philadelphia over the last few years. Their bullpen looks like they're getting it together, and then they revert back to their old ways. And when you look at the Philadelphia bullpen on the road this year, their ERA as a staff is over 6. That's not very good. So where am I going with this? We got 2 red-hot starting pitchers. And we got 2 terrible bullpens. So I'm going to go with a first 5 total here, Doug. There's not a first 5 total out yet. There will be in the morning. My guess is that total's anywhere from 3.5 to 4. Even if it is 3.5, I still like the under here. I like these 2 starting pitchers. I think they'll have their way for the first 5 innings or so, and then I don't want to worry about, and I don't want to lose sleep, and I don't want to get any more gray hair, and I don't want to get any more ulcers from watching both of these bullpens. So I'm going Philadelphia, San Francisco under the first half total of either 3.5 or 4, Doug.
Yeah, so you don't want to do the Maalox Masher like
No.
Dick Vitale always called that?
Yeah.
At that point. And you brought up the San Francisco bullpen because I was a victim on Saturday. I had the under 7.5 with DeFascani and Zach Gallen. Okay,
Gallen.
had the under, and it was 4-2. Top of the 8th. Well, guess what? The old San Francisco bullpen gave up 3 runs, and that was that. Okay, from that standpoint, I had the under 7.5 on that. So yeah, so I'm very familiar with that, and I like your thinking there, Ross. I think this is the right way to go, even though mentally, I've seen Cobb pitch twice. I think like 3 innings I've seen him so far, and I mean he is just masterful. Okay,
Yeah,
right now.
yeah.
I mean, I mean, working both sides of the plate. He must really like the ballpark, okay, with the extra, space and everything there. Because I all I can picture, Ross, and I can see it to this day, is Alex Cobb when he was with the Orioles. Oh my God. I mean, he couldn't last 3 innings, okay,
No.
without walking 4 guys and giving up 7 runs. Now it's like a brand new guy at what, 35, I think he is, or 34, something like that. So yeah, so Ross, I really like that pick. I think that's the right way to go. I think it's going to be 4. Okay, as long as I think even if it falls to 7, I still think it's going to be 4. Okay,
Yeah.
because the way odds makers think today, or how they've changed how they think. So, and that's advantageous. So yeah, let's go. I like the under on that one for the first 5 innings with you.
Yeah, ironically enough, that Saturday game, and I'm certainly not gonna. It's not intended to rub it in, but I had the under 4 in the first 5 innings of that
Okay,
game, and cashed very easily. As a matter of fact, it was 1-0 at the end of 5, which has got to aggravate Doug even more because we had a 1-0 game at the end of 5, and you got the under 7.5. The probabilities of you losing that game, nothing's impossible, folks, but the the odds are on your side dramatically. So, and
well, I knew, because in my write up for that game, I said I really like this game. My only concern is both bullpens,
yeah,
and I was right.
yeah,
Right in that context. Anyways, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. And Alex Cobb, I mean, it speaks to what you just said. I mean, you look at his WHIP, it's not dominating like his ERA is, which means
Right.
uh, what comes to my mind when I see something like that is savvy, because it's not like he's averaging 4 1/3 innings pitch per start over his last 5. He's averaging close to 6 2/3 innings pitched,
Right.
averaged over his last 5. And he knows how to pitch. That's the bottom line. And like Doug says, he's got very comfortable with the spacious ballpark there in San Francisco, where if you get hitters that hit to the alleys and dead center, you're going to have success more times than not. So in any event, I like the first 5. I'm going to go San Francisco, Philadelphia, either under 4 or under 3.5, folks. Whatever you get it at, I'm good with. And Doug likes the Seattle Mariners, and I agree with him. Minus the 145 over Boston. I don't like to really go as high with that, but it's either Seattle or nothing in that game,
Right.
that kind of thing. So, all right, Doug, any final words? You want to bring anybody up to speed on any other win streaks you want to bring their attention to?
I think, Ross, to be honest with you, I think I'm good from that standpoint. Things, like I said, things are just, like I said, trending in the right direction. So I'm looking just to keep that going. And now, do you do WNBA, by the way, at
I
all?
do not. I do
Okay,
not.
that's coming up, and I actually I spent last year. I never actually have done it before. I've bet it some, but never. And so I spent all last year going through and formulating how I'm going to do it for the upcoming season. So I'm actually kind of, excited about that. To see what goes on. It's not as easy to beat as what it used to be, but nonetheless, I mean, I think I know a number of guys that do very well at it. I've spoken to some of those guys and got some good input as to how to attack this. So looking forward for that to see what goes on during the rest of the summer, because once the USFL's gone and there's just Canadian football, Ross. I like Canadian football because I do it, but still, you'd like to have something else to fill all this stuff in with.
Absolutely, absolutely. Me, I welcome just being challenged with baseball and the rest of the NBA playoffs. And folks, again, number 1 in the NBA playoffs at sportsmemo.com. And without talking arrogant, nobody's a close second. Just having one of those first 2 rounds. And like Doug always likes to say, can't explain it. It's just one of those where you're seeing things clearly, the ball's bouncing your way a little bit, and you're making intelligent decisions, and you've left all the emotion out of the equation because you hadn't had a tough loss yesterday or on a bad streak. So, yeah, and since last Wednesday, all sports 6-1, And all sports 10-star top plays, 6-1 the last 7. rbwins.com, folks. Appreciate your support by going there as well and purchasing some of my package or subscriptions, as well as Doug's at DocSports.com. Doug will be back with me on Thursday. I'll be back tomorrow morning with Jesse Schewel and Sean Higgs. We'll be discussing the NBA Game 1 Western Conference Finals between the Denver Nuggets and the LA Lakers. And we'll be covering the NBA all week long. And then Doug will be back with us, like I said, on Thursday afternoon, as we'll be covering some Friday Major League Baseball. Until then, folks, take care. God bless. And don't forget, give us a like.